You're up by 30 seconds.
According to
Sure.
this, it's 6:31.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the July 10th, 2018 meeting of the Planning Board of the Town of Harwich, Massachusetts. I would like to announce that the town is both video and audio recording this meeting, and that if anybody in the audience would also like to do their own video or audio recording, if they could please let the chair know that they're doing such. With that said, I would like to open the agenda with the first public hearing. The public hearing is PB 2018-24, Sunday School, Inc. applicant, care of Brian G. The Guardian, and excuse me, Brian, if I mispronounced.
And that's not Brian.
That's not Brian, okay. Well, let me just finish this and then you can tell us who you are. Seeks approval of site plan review special permit with waivers pursuant to the code of the town of Harwich, section 325-55, to add a new entrance off Route 28, which will reduce the number of parking spaces by 4. The property is located at 606 Route 28, map 14, parcel Z18-2, and is in the C-V and R-M and Village Commercial Overlay Districts. Now, before we go into the public hearing, what I would like to announce is that for the board to approve the requested special permit will require a unanimous vote of the board, since it requires a vote of 5 active board members, and unfortunately, we only have 5 active board members here this evening. So with that, I would like to ask the applicant if they would like to proceed, and if so, if they could give us their name and also give us a brief overview of their proposed application.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Yes, first of all, we would like to proceed. Secondly, my name is Kieran Healy. I'm a land surveyor with the BSC Group. The name you mentioned there was Brian Yagatian. He's the project engineer. He's not available tonight, so I'm in his place. As you had mentioned, we are looking to add a second entrance to the property off of Route 28. The current entrance is shared between our locust property and the property next door, and there have been some difficulties between the two owners. And what we would like to do is to eliminate the difficulty by basically having the neighbor have their entrance and us have our entrance on our property. If I could bring your attention to the plan for a second. Right now there is an easement in this area right here that allows access to this property, and people drive here. What we would like to do is add a secondary entrance and put in a post and rail fence along this side right here, so that this property would have its exclusive entrance and use, and this property would be able to use the easement and use. This also comes out on Bank Street on this property. So we have requested some waivers. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like me to go through the waivers that we've requested.
If you could just do it briefly.
Okay. The first waiver we looked for was the drainage calculations. The reason we look for a waiver is that we are adding no drainage structures to this. The entranceway itself is relatively small, and the only modification to the pavement area is changing parking spaces into an access driveway. So there's no additional parking area. Sorry, there's no additional blacktop in that area. There is a small amount of blacktop between the edge of the parking and Route 28, which would be additional, but that is minor, that we're not going to add any additional drainage for that. The second item was the existing conditions plan. Basically what you have in front of you is the existing conditions plan for the entire site, with the exception of this right here, so we just submitted one plan that will show that information. Legend of all the symbols, we added that legend by mail on attachment, so I hope that you have that if there's any questions. Topography requirement. The existing site is relatively flat, as for many of you who have been out to the site, you have noticed that it's relatively flat out there. So we have proposed topo at the entranceway, and we did not topo the entire rest of the site. The dumpster location, there is a dumpster adjacent to the north side of the building. It's completely adjacent to the building, so it doesn't have its own outside area. It's not a fenced-in area to rear of the property. It's adjacent to the building itself. The sewage disposal system, we have not shown one because there is no change to the structure or the sewage flow that would be going into it. Again, this is just for the entranceway onto Route 28. Lighting details, the same thing. We're not looking to change anything out there as far as the lighting goes. The lighting that is out there would be adequate for the new driveway entrance. The retaining wall that's out there, we're looking for a waiver on that because the retaining wall is actually more like an ornamental wall than a retaining wall. It's there purely for the look of along Route 28. It doesn't really retain any earth mounds or anything like that. The general location of trees and proposed landscaping, the same again with this. We're looking to do very minor modifications to the site. The entranceway will be blacktop, and it will be in the same manner that the existing driveway is right now. And then the last item is the building plans. Same thing again, we're not proposing any changes to the building modifications. It's just purely the entranceway that we're looking for. And anything else I would be glad to answer. Mrs. Fennell, the owner of the property, is also here if you have some direct questions for her.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we open it up to questions, I'd like to ask Charlene for the staff comments on this application.
Thank you. Regarding comments from other boards, committees, and departments, fire department, no concerns. They believe it's a good idea. Engineering said it does need a Mass DOT curb cut. The entrance does exceed the 50-foot maximum under our zoning, but at the actual property line, it's only 32 feet. Mass Highway is going to dictate to us, regardless of what our regulations are, what the width of that curb cut would need to be. Highway Department has no concerns, Police Department has no concerns. And as I just said, at the property line, the curb cut width is 46.4 feet, excuse me, I said 32 early, I apologize, to allow for adequate radii. The entrance does flare to the 82 where it will meet the existing paved layout on Route 28. The site went through review in 1996 and received a special permit for a restaurant fast food in 2002. There have been little or frankly no changes to the site except for perhaps some plantings in the area. Per conversations with the applicant's engineer, Mass DOT has reviewed the proposal and preliminarily has not issued the new curb cut. However, they are waiting upon review of the local board before they can act formally. At this point, they are looking favorably at this change. As the site is existing and no little changes have been made since the original approvals, the requested waivers do appear to be reasonable. The reduction in the number of parking space still leaves way more than adequate parking for the existing ice cream shop use. A recommended condition is that an as-built plan should be required in the event that as a result of the review and approval of Mass DOT, if there does result in any significant changes to the new entrance, that we do get an as-built plan so we know exactly what they have built at the site. The relocation of the signs may require additional review and approval of the building department, and the request before the board appears to be appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Charlene. Now I'd like to first ask all of the board members whether or not they have any questions or comments. Joe?
Just a couple. You said it quickly, so I didn't get it. Sunday School Inc. is the title holder of the property?
Yes, we have it written right well.
Is that,
The
Actually,
current
it's
title is J.R. Fennell Realty Trust.
so Fennell owns it, not the Sunday School people?
They're the same person.
Same.
No, they're not.
Sunday School is the applicant here. The owner is Fennell, and Fennell did sign off on the application.
I have a question.
Joe, is that?
No, I have just one other question. Does the property owner also own, I'll show it to you, does he own this piece up in here?
Yes, it's one parcel of land.
Okay, and that piece is, you don't currently have it marked or anything for parking?
I believe it's grass right now. There is no.
Okay, I thought so. That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, Jim?
Thank you, Jim. Kieran, on the proposed post and rail fence, is that, I mean, is there any curbing or shrubbery or anything going in there, or is that a temporary structure, or?
One of the thoughts was that we'd leave it kind of as a temporary structure to see how everything went, and also to see if the fire department would want a secondary egress at that point.
Yeah.
But it would be, if regular vehicles would not be able to go in and out at this stage.
Okay.
It may get planted later, but that's not our intent this time.
And that would, of course, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead, Jim.
that would, of course, in other words, the only way to get in and out is your proposed new entranceway.
Yes.
And that would close it off,
Correct.
which is, if I understand correctly, one of the reasons you're doing it is because of the conflict with what's going on there now when people come and go.
That is correct.
Jim, did
And
that
that-
take
and
care of
that-
your problem?
Yeah, this is to alleviate or give relief to Sunday school for the incursion in their parking by others, or by their neighbor, or?
It appears that the neighbors have a tendency for their parking to cross onto our property. And we would like to make that more difficult for them in the future.
You have to like move these in? Okay. I mean, I'll do it, I just.
And in no way are we prohibiting the use of that easement that's there to service the neighboring property.
Yeah.
David?
Is the split rail fence intended to remain there year-round, or will you have it removed during the winter for snow removal and things like that?
I don't believe that's been actually discussed. I can discuss with the,
Yeah, we haven't got that far yet,
If- You know, the split rail fence is maybe a little out of character for the rest of the traffic management. If this works, do you plan to perhaps install a more permanent, visible barrier?
We're just seeing how the traffic pattern
Wait,
works. and then we'll
sorry,
figure
wait.
Yeah, could,
No one's gonna hear you, you need
Sorry.
to come up to the microphone, and
yeah,
also let people know who
and
you are.
David, could you ask those questions of the man who's here, and if he wants to call on somebody to assist him, then if they could just identify themselves?
Sure.
Of course. Did you hear my question?
I did hear your
I
question,
will.
and if you would identify yourself.
Would you like me to come up there or from here?
No, you can do
Whichever.
there, but just identify yourself
Okay,
for
my
the
name is
record, please.
Andrea Endress, and my family and I own the Sunday school. And we're trying to work out the pattern. We don't have a definite pattern on how the traffic is going to go, so that's why the split rail seems a little more temporary until we can figure out how it works and hopefully come up with something decorative that would look attractive.
Okay, while you're still at the speaker, to
Mhm.
sort of expand on one of David's questions, is my understanding you're not open in the winter, so I wouldn't imagine there would be any snow removal issue?
Correct.
Do you remove snow in the parking lot when you're
No.
not open?
No,
Okay, thank you.
Just, for the record, how many months a year are you open?
probably May through September.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other
Anybody
questions?
else?
I have one more.
Sure.
This,
Jim?
you know, I'm not making fun of anything, but can you help the town of Harwich with parking? Because we have a problem.
Jim, that's not on the agenda for tonight's discussion, so.
Nice try, though.
So, nice try, but I think we're going to give her a bye on that
No,
one.
that's, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Any other questions from members of the board? Okay, hearing none, are there any questions or comments from members of the audience this evening? Okay, and again, if you could just identify yourself for the record, please?
Barbara Nickerson, live at 37 Bayview Road. I've got several comments if you all don't mind. Couple things is that, no, the proposed location is directly across from Bayview Road, and about 75 foot from the existing entrance. Placement of this entrance will create a significant increase in turning and entry conflicts between the two business entries and existing road. Turns of both businesses from Route 28 could easily block any attempt from route turning onto 28 from Bayview, since the Route 28 traffic will have the right-of-way. The high level of use of Bank Street Beach has created a significant increase in traffic on Bayview Road. In an attempt to bypass the Bank Street Route 28 intersection, adding a third entry will only create further difficulty in turning onto Route 28 from Bayview Road. no offense, but it's strongly suggested that, if Embers and Sunday School have a problem, that you work it out instead of impacting the local residents that live there with your new entry. I'd like to know what alternatives were looked at. I mean, I can't believe that this is the only option out there. What alternatives did the engineers look at or the planners look at? Traffic's already heavy and impacts the ability to exit onto 28 from Bayview Road. This morning, I couldn't get out of my driveway because I had 4 cars on Bayview Road trying to get onto 28. And I would invite all of you to come on Saturday and Sunday on a nice beach day and sit there and try to and see both the car and pedestrian traffic going up and down the road. The other comment I guess concerned about is the fact that, I got a notice because I live with the, 300 foot of the proposed change, but I'm 300 foot, but you have people up and down Bayview that are more than 300 foot. You have all the people on Bank Street, you have all the people on Woodland Road, especially when May through September, when Sunday school is open, that use this entrance, and everybody uses Bayview Road to not go down the Bank Street 28 issue. There's only 2 roads that exist going to Bank Street from 28 to get to the beach, and that's Bank Street and Bayview, so I can tell you what the traffic is like all the time in the summer. So I would understand that there's an issue between the 2 businesses. It'd be great if, you could work out and not impact the local residents, because we're the ones that are going to pay for it. You're only there for a few months. The rest of us are there for 12 months.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other comments or questions from members of the public here?
Yes, my
Yes.
name's Joe Young. We just purchased the house on 611 Main Street, which is directly across, sits on Bayview and 28. The questions I have is, has there been a traffic study to see what this is going to do to the traffic?
Sir, if you have any questions or comments, you can certainly make them.
Yep.
But whether or not there's been a traffic study is not an issue that is before the board, the planning board this
Okay.
evening.
Well, it's
What's
just a
before the
question that
planning
needs to...
board is the proposal that has been presented.
Okay, well, it's a question that does need to be answered. If they haven't done a traffic study, then they don't know how this is going to affect everyone. I know myself and my wife, we've been having to take a right and go towards Freeman to get around traffic because it's been that bad. The other thing is are they planning to do a sidewalk? I'm just more concerned about pedestrians crossing, because right now it's already been
Again,
crazy.
sir, the proposal that's before us is what has been described. There was not a sidewalk listed in that proposal.
Okay. And then the only other thing I would say, which you'll probably just repeat yourself, is are they looking to do a crosswalk there?
I mean, again,
Right.
we're dealing with a proposal
Yep.
that's in front of
And
us
that's,
this evening.
and I completely understand that, but these are things that need to be thought about before you make a decision, that's all.
Okay, well, thank you for your
Yes,
comments.
thank you.
Anybody else in the audience?
Yes.
Okay, and again, if you could just identify yourself for the record, please?
Yeah, my name is Jerry Scannell, and I'm here this evening as the abutter on the east side of the Sunday school. And my past 18 years here in Harwich, being next to the Sunday school, it's been a wonderful relationship. They're, I think, a well-managed organization. Mike, right here, I was walking through the lot to get some exercise over a month ago, said, hey, we're considering putting another entrance and exit. And I said, well, hey, thanks, Mike. Yeah, can you tell me where? And I'll go up to the planning commission. So I did go up to the planning commission. But a sidebar, probably the best ice cream east of the Mississippi. Great, great ice cream store. I have a couple of questions that the previous gentleman mentioned, that has consideration been given to widening the existing entrance and exit?
I mean, again, sir, what we're dealing with tonight is the proposal that is in front of us.
Okay, thank you. I do not have a real problem with the exit and entrance there. My line, property line is probably 42, 43 feet east of where the proposed entrance and exit. Just for transparency, I am a member of the Harwich Traffic Safety Committee. I am not here as a representative of the Harwich Traffic Safety Committee. I talked to Jerry Beltis, who's the chairman. He suggested that I do come up here, but for transparency, yeah, I'm representing myself at 616 Route 28. Background is former president and CEO of the National Safety Council, the largest not-for-profit organization on highway safety, community safety, employer safety, and so forth. And I also am former Assistant Secretary of Labor for the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. So I do have some experience in the field of occupational safety, health, and highway safety. I was appointed by the President to take the real problem of making America walkable. We are not a walkable nation, and we should be trying to do that.
Excuse me, sir, not that I want to cut you off, but
Yeah.
we're trying to deal with the proposal that's in front of us.
Okay.
So if you could limit your comments to, as it relates to the proposal that's in front of us this evening?
I apologize.
No, that's all right.
You know, being a safety zealot for so long, it's a tough sell.
Well, I understand, but we need to limit our discussion to
I
the
understand,
proposal
and I
that's in front of
apologize
us.
for extending that.
Okay?
But as it stands now, we also, Harwich has a lot of crosswalks that are not ADA compliant.
Again, sir, I need to limit the discussion to the proposal that is in front of us.
Well, I would wish you would consider sidewalks, crosswalks at this intersection,
Okay.
and remove the one up the street that no one can get over if they're in a wheelchair. So if you would consider that. The town has a policy on crosswalks that's in a draft stage. We need to-
Excuse me, sir, we are
Okay.
not here to discuss the town's policy on crosswalks.
But, you know,
Your comment with regard to this intersection was valid.
okay, well,
Okay.
as it stands now, you know, it could be a very dangerous situation. And as a planning committee, I think you two should take the initiative maybe to push someone in the town to get the crosswalk policy passed. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Shirley?
If I might, this is a state road, so any state curb cuts, any crosswalks would have to be done by the state. The town can't put any crosswalks in, across Route 28.
That's correct.
Sidewalks, that's something that the town certainly, we're looking at extending the sidewalk on the south side of the road all the way to Saquatucket Harbor. So that, that is something that the town is looking at. But right now, you need to have sidewalks on both sides of the road in order to do a crosswalk, because you can't have a crosswalk to nothing. We have several of those. The state, it's the state, if you'd let me finish, the state does have some of those. They are not in compliance with anything. So, but the town has no control over where crosswalks are located along
Okay.
Route 28.
Thank you, Shirley. Okay, are there any other comments from any members of the public that are here this evening? Okay, David, did you have another question?
Yeah, I just want to point out that this new entrance is not adding traffic. Traffic is not going, the amount of traffic is not going to change. There is a lot of confusion by new patrons of both establishments when they drive in as to whether they go left or right, because they can't go straight ahead because it's one way. So, in my view, having done some traffic planning as an architect, I think this relieves a lot of the congestion that will occur there by allowing two entrances that serve separate establishments. I understand that those of you that live in the area may wonder what really will happen, but I believe that this will reduce traffic, reduce confusion. I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, if the applicant would like to.
Mr. Chairman, just to respond to one of the items that came up, and that is
Sure.
the location of the entranceway. The first thing we did before we came to this board was have an informal discussion with Mass Highway on the location that they would prefer. and they actually prefer to have it lined up with an existing roadway. So that's why it's in this particular location,
Opposite that other street.
opposite the other street. That's
Okay.
the particular reason it's in that exact location.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Okay, Joe, did you have another question?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Well, before we get to that motion,
Okay.
I just would want to remind the applicant that this is going to require a unanimous vote of the board members that are present this evening. And just again, ask the applicant, if they desire to proceed.
I do believe I'd like to proceed. I don't know this board. I have not been in front of this board. Would it be unreasonable to ask the board how they're leaning before they vote?
No.
We don't usually do that, but I can understand your concern due to the absence of many members this evening. So without committing yourself, if you could just sort of give some indication of whether you're positive or negative on this application. David?
I think I've already done that.
I think you have also. Mary?
I've agreed with the comments my colleague David has made, so.
Right. And, I'm looking favorably on this application.
As am I.
Jim?
I'm struggling a little bit with this, to be honest.
Ask questions.
Okay. Well, then, you now have the consensus of the board. So again, I will ask, yes?
I was
Shirley?
just going to say, if the board member who is having some issues, are there questions that he can ask that might help him to, decide concretely one way or the other? I'm not trying to sway him at all, but if, now is the opportunity to ask any additional questions if he feels it's going to be helpful.
I think there were some very, very good questions asked by folks in the audience. And I understand the reason for this. I get it. I'm just, looking at the plan and looking at that street there and taking into consideration pedestrians and I'm not sure about traffic. I don't know. That's a question. I agree with Mr. Harris because I don't think that the traffic will change. It's going to stay at the current rate for 4 months. But I don't know what the impact will be on that intersection, and I'd like to know that. And I think that's why I'm unsure.
Our hopes for the new driveway were to relieve some of the traffic pressure. Obviously, you have all the cars trying to go into one driveway now.
It separates it into two. Hopefully, the traffic doesn't get as backed up on 28 as it is. Might help it move a little quicker, we were hoping.
Yeah.
And like Kiernan said, it was the state that suggested that the opening be opposite Bayview. We have a large expanse there where it could be moved to the side, but this is where the state suggested they wanted it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
They
you.
don't live there, try to get out of their driveway.
Excuse me, if you would like to make a comment, we can certainly hear you, but if you please come to the mic and introduce yourself.
Barbara Nickerson still.
Thank you.
And I understand what you're saying, but the reality is that I can't get out of Bayview on a Saturday or Sunday without having to wait and wait and wait, and that's making a right turn only to the east, because I can't get across and go west. So how's this going to be any better when not only do I have east and west traffic on 28, but now I have them coming out of Sunday school also. So then they're going to try to go east or west, and they're going to block me. I mean, I don't know where the state's thinking, because they're creating a huge issue right there with that. I don't understand how they think it's going to be better. I understand there's an issue with the entrance. I'm not arguing that at all. But, what alternatives did y'all look at? Did you look at widening the existing one? Did you look at putting a median in between and widening the existing entrance and putting a median there, one for Embers and one for Sunday school? I understand there's an issue with the, I'm not arguing that, But, you know, and maybe the state wants it across from Bayview, but the reality is, the fact that it goes across into the Melrose, it is easier for people getting in and out of Bayview than it is if you're gonna have a third row coming, no, a third entrance coming down, heading south onto the 28, right across from Bayview. I mean, just think about it logically. You got east-west, and now you got them coming out of Sunday school too. Who's gonna have the right-of-way? You got problems at Bank Street and 28 as it is right now. You're just gonna move it a couple hundred feet further east,
Okay, thank you.
my opinion.
Thank you. I mean, I have to go back to David's comment that by changing this entrance, it's not going to create any additional traffic. And I can understand your comment about the fact that it's being relocated, but again, this is a state highway. The state is the one that has to actually approve the curve cuts. Okay, any other, Jim, do you have any other comments or questions that you would like to ask?
You know, I think what I would feel better with is if we could perhaps continue this and have a traffic study conducted just to put people's minds at ease, and mine as well.
If I could, Mr. Joyce, I don't believe a traffic study is going to help in any way, because a traffic study is generally done for an increase in traffic flow.
Yep.
And as Mr. House said, the traffic is not going to increase. We still have the same amount of cars.
Mhm.
Hopefully, both businesses are busy in the summertime, and they make money like all businesses. A few things that came up there was, one was, why don't we widen this entranceway? Well, the state don't allow us to widen the entranceway. So
Yep.
we can't do that. We did look at that option.
Yep.
But that's not an option because the state don't allow it.
Mhm.
And, you know, like the town is, we have to answer to all the state as well. The second thing is right now, that a lot of the traffic that's a problem here is a problem because people are coming in and they're not sure which way to go.
Yeah.
And when we reduce this entrance purely to this site and this entrance purely for that site, it's going to increase the availability of cars to get in and get out safely on both these properties. Right now, there's a bottleneck on this property. So we're going to remove the bottleneck. And I think that's going to be an overall improvement to the site. I don't believe a traffic study will help the situation and give us any more answers, because if there's 1,000 cars going on Route 28 now, there'll still be 1,000 cars on Route 28 after this after the modification is made. So respectfully, I would say the traffic study isn't going to give us any additional answers.
I think you make a good point. It's a valid point. And I'm one who understands if you use an example of 1,000 vehicles, that's not going to change. It's going to be shifted. But I'd rather know. That's my opinion.
Okay, Jim, I had worked for a number of years with a transportation planning agency in Boston and have been involved, you know, either directly or indirectly in a number of traffic studies, and I agree with the applicant that a traffic study is only a valid mechanism when you're dealing with a potential application that is going to increase traffic, and you want to find where that traffic is going to go. Now, my personal experience, and again, this is not a scientific study, is that when I'm tied up on Route 28 in the area of Sunday school, it has nothing to do with Sunday school, it has nothing to do with Ember, it has more to do with pedestrians crossing at the crosswalks in the center of Harwichport. That backs up traffic all the way beyond Sunday school in that direction and all the way beyond the Dunkin' Donuts going in the other direction.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of traffic on Route 28 during the summer. That's my observation, anyway.
And
David?
Yeah, I agree with Jim. I think you're absolutely right. I actually believe this will reduce traffic congestion by adding this entrance. One of the concerns I do have, though, is that people that have frequented both locations, Ember and Sunday School, are used to the Sunday School Ember combined entrance. What do you plan to do from a standpoint of signage and graphics to eliminate that confusion by people pulling in and then being halted by the fence not being able to go over to Sunday school. That I believe is a concern for which there's a solution, but I don't see it on your drawings.
Well, one of the items would be that this entranceway would be done in the off-season. So it would be a whole new season that starts. The second thing is there would be a new sign at the new entranceway for Sunday school. And then, possibly another sign that, at the fence saying that, this is not the entrance to Sunday school anymore. People will learn very quickly. I mean, we can do it by an additional sign, but also people will learn, especially if it's done in the off-season. People who want to see the activity that are local. I realize that a lot of the business is not local. A lot of the business is summertime.
But frankly, in the off-season, most of the patrons of Sunday school aren't here.
I fully agree with that. But,
So, Jim, is it
Yeah,
okay
go
to say
ahead.
something? So I want you to know that I've spent 42 years in heavy manufacturing, and when we would make a process change, we'd do a risk assessment and a hazard analysis to determine the impact of that change on the given environment or process. So as I see it, you're changing the process from an entrance, the existing entrance, to another without assessing the impact or the hazard.
we believe that the assessment that was done by our office is that we will reduce a bottleneck where you got both businesses going in at the one driveway right now and coming out at the one driveway right now.
Yeah.
So that our assessment is that by creating two driveways, we will improve the situation. And I think you've heard from your board members that in general,
Yeah.
they agree with that.
I would personally feel more comfortable seeing that, and taking a look at it. It's my opinion.
Well, again, Jim, as Charlene had pointed out, this is a state highway under control of the Massachusetts Highway Department. And to some extent, they're the ones that have to make a determination as to, with regard to their highways, as to whether or not curb cuts are allowed in certain areas. And they have to evaluate the safety of adding a curb cut. Which, from what I gather here, while you haven't gotten a formal decision, you've gotten sort of a sense that Mass Highway, is in agreement with us.
Correct, we did meet with Mass Highway
Right.
before we submitted anything to the town to get their understanding and what they would like to see. And the thing I feel, Mr. Joyce, is that a traffic study isn't going to give you the answer you want, because a traffic study is there counting cars.
Yeah.
And we know that if we have 1,000 today, we'll have 1,000 tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm afraid of, is that if we do look for continuance to get you to do a traffic study, we're just not going to give you the answer you want, because there's no real quantifiable way to give you the answer that
So-
you think you're looking for.
So, Mr. Healy, the Massachusetts Department of Transportation and the Highway Department aren't infallible, okay? If they were, and you got off Route 6 at exit 11, where I get off just about every day, you'd see that the placement of their warning sign precludes any clear view to your right as you're trying to make a turn to the left. They're not perfect, okay? I just am very uncomfortable with making a change and not having the data to support it. I'm sorry. I mean, I could take your word for it and say, yeah, okay,
Okay, Jim,
but
Jim?
I'm not comfortable, and I know how I'm going to vote.
okay. Jim, could you explain to us exactly what data you're looking for?
Well, I'd like to know the basis for the decision that was taken. I really would, and I think that's
Well,
probably a part of the
Jim,
record.
That's not data. What data are you looking for in a traffic study?
There are a number of things. It's separation of, it's vehicle and pedestrian traffic and interaction in a closed area. And if we are making a change to the flow, to the known flow, does anybody know what the impact of that change will be? Other than somebody saying, yes, okay, you have a civil engineer that says we can make a cut here. I agree, you can make a cut, but does anybody know what the impact, or feel that they've got reasonable data to say, hey, that cut here, lined up with this intersection, is going to make it safer or better for the people who are going into Sunday school and the people who live around or who are walking through Harwich. I just don't know. And it's the uncertainty of that that makes me pause.
Actually, the state traffic people indicated that the entrance directly across from Bayview is a preferred arrangement. They actually made that statement.
For what reason?
For what? Because they're experiencing traffic flow.
It's North Road.
Excuse me, can I say something, please?
We're still having a board discussion. Before we do anything, I'll certainly give you an opportunity to speak.
I just,
Go ahead.
Larry?
Can I?
yeah.
Yes.
I just have to pipe in. The alternative would be would be three separate entrances on that same stretch. Because you're saying you'd have the Ember easement, you'd have Bayview, and then you'd have another part of that stretch. I mean, I have to think, it's a state highway. The state ultimately has, say, on the final curb cut, the state's given them the indication that that's where they'd like to see it, but the state also can't act and isn't going to act until we give them some kind of approval to move forward. So, I mean, I guess that's where my concern is. We don't have final say. We have a piece of the pie, and they've indicated that they'd rather have it look more like an intersection. And from my perspective, I would think that would be preferable for traffic flow than having three separates and alternating side by side in the same stretch, as opposed to having essentially an intersection and a second entrance. Ultimately, I think the final decision will come down to their final hearings with Mass DOT, which is, I think, the reason that Charlene requested the as-built plan, in case something gets changed, and it very easily could get changed.
When is that?
But we can't go forward until,
When is-
nobody can go forward until,
When is what?
When is the as-built plan?
Well, the state can't even review this until the local jurisdiction gives its blessing through the approval process. At that point, they will work with the engineers to finalize how that entrance will look. It may be exactly what has been proposed by BSC. It may be slightly different. I know they won't do a median. The state does not like medians on any of their curb cuts. If somebody has one now, it's grandfathered, and don't change it because you won't get it back. So the as-built wouldn't occur until they actually have it constructed. But it has been my experience, and I've been doing planning on the Cape for 30 years, that they do want T intersections. Anytime they can, whether it's a driveway or road, they want to see directly across the street. They do not want to see offsets, because that's when you entertain more accidents.
Joe?
Mr. Chairman, I don't like us, I'm not comfortable putting Mr. Joyce in this position. And he's in the position because we don't have enough people here. There's only 5 of us. I know we have a sufficient to hold a meeting, but it would be my intention, I won't do it without some discussion, but it would be my intention to lay this on the table.
essentially.
But by lay it on the table, Joe, you mean proceed with the vote?
No, lay it on the table.
You actually,
You mean
I think you'd prefer to continue
Table it.
the public
You mean
hearing.
to continue the public
Continue.
hearing?
That's what I meant.
Oh, okay, fine. But I think what we would need to do is get the concurrence of the applicant as to whether or not they wanted to continue the public hearing, or whether they wanted, us just to proceed to a
I
vote.
don't think we need his permission, sir.
Well, no, I
But
think we do need his permission for a
Charlene has a
continuance.
Actually, you don't need his permission for a continuance. However, you do need to provide them direction on what it is you're asking for
Right.
the purposes of the
Right,
continuance.
and that's why I asked.
And that needs to be specific.
And that's why I asked Jim as to exactly what type of data he was going to be looking for.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
Would there be a possibility that, that the applicant could get some communication from DOT indicating that that was their preferred location. I mean, I'm just trying to think of something that you could,
Yeah, I
that,
mean, I'd like
that
to
you'd
know.
have to hang your hat on. And I understand the neighbors being concerned with it as well. I just don't, I personally don't think we're in the driver's seat in this situation, because I think a lot's
Well,
gonna
he
happen
makes-
after our vote.
He makes certain representations with regard to the DOT, and you're saying
Correct.
you'd like to see them.
Cor-
Yeah,
I'm wondering if perhaps an actual communication from DOT may help Mr. Joyce in this situation.
I would like to see the basis of their assessment or decision, that's all.
When you say they, you're talking about the DOT, or you
Yes.
talking about our company?
DOT.
Okay, we can request a letter from DOT,
Mhm.
explaining why they prefer to have a driveway line up with an existing roadway as opposed to having an offset.
Okay.
Would that be enough to carry the day,
Once I read it,
if it's suitable?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, before we proceed with the vote on a continuance, I think there were some members of the audience that had some additional comments, and I want to make sure they have an opportunity to make those comments.
Thank you, my name's Terry Young again. The biggest concern is there's gonna be people crossing the street right at that intersection with no crosswalk, no sidewalk. They're gonna be crossing over, if they did use a crosswalk, going towards Denver, cutting across like they do now. So is this the only entrance to actually get into, Sunday school? Like
Well,
for pedestrians as well?
Well, according to the plan, it is
That's what it
showing
looks
that's the
like,
only
right?
driveway entrance into
That's
the...
the only entrance to get in.
Yes.
And, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
the
Joe?
representation from the applicant is that the whole idea of this is so that both of them, being Ember and the ice cream place, don't have to use the single entrance that they currently use.
No, and I understand that. I
So-
get that. You can't just sit here and think people aren't gonna just cross the street to go across to the,
Oh, I know.
get in there.
And one other thing too, you should know that there at least is a proposal, see if it happens, to have a sidewalk from Harwich Port Center to Saquotucket Harbor,
Correct, and that's only on the south side, so.
on your side, yes.
Correct, not the north side where there's no sidewalk.
Oh, I know.
Okay?
Charlene?
Yeah, just an observation, vehicular access to Sunday school would be at the new entrance. Pedestrian access, they can still cross where the Ember is and go across and walk through the lawn. There's no, the fence isn't gonna block off pedestrian access from the existing entrance. It's just gonna block off vehicular, at least that's how I read the plan.
Mr. Chairman?
Let's let this woman make her comments, and then I'll come back to you, David.
Still Barbara Nickerson.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so a couple things, in response to what you said, so you're gonna have two possible locations for pedestrians to enter Sunday school. So not only are you gonna be dealing with the vehicles turning in across from Bayview, the new entrance, but also from the Embers also. Is that what you're saying?
This business would not be dealing with entrance, vehicles at the Embers entrance. The idea is to not use that
I
entrance for
understand that,
vehicles.
But Joe's point was that you're gonna have people crossing from the south side of 28. Do they have to go in the same entrance as the cars do to get to Sunday school? Or is there another opportunity to get into Sunday school?
Well, excuse me, I think by personal observation, people who are walking just go whatever way they can. And there is not going to be this is the only place you can walk sign, any place in this area, according to the way I read the proposal.
And by the way, I live in this area, and I'm a regular customer at Sunday school, and I don't go in either one of these. I come in through the back way from Pleasant Street, because that's where I live. That's the easiest way.
If I could, Mr. Chairman,
Well, this woman is still making comments?
oh, I'm sorry.
My other comment was that if you're gonna get information from MassDOT as far as why they like to have this entrance across from another side road or artery, I hope somebody tells them that Bayview Road goes nowhere. It's not like it has access to get, you have to go down Bayview to get to Woodland to back to Bank Street, so you make a big U-turn. That it's not like Bayview is gonna be able to cut across like to Freeman, get to Bank Street or something like that. Is that, you know, maybe they like to have it there, but the reality is that you head south, you're gonna end up in Nantucket Sound. Make sure that MassDOT understands that since they're not here.
Okay, thank you very much. David?
Yeah, this is really a question for Charlene. Does Harwich Port, or Harwich have the right, have a process for asking for a crosswalk at a certain location where there's heavy pedestrian traffic?
They certainly can, the town has asked in other areas and has not met with positive feedback from the state. I mean, the sidewalk that we're proposing to do on the south side of Route 28, it looks like at this point, the town needs to pay for that.
Okay.
MassDOT will build it, but the town has to pay for it. So we're figuring out now where to get the money to pay for it. But you also still need to have a crosswalk from an existing sidewalk to an existing sidewalk. I know there's some out there right now, including the one in front of Ember, that there's no sidewalk to anywhere. Those are not in compliance with
Yeah.
ADA or
The code,
the
yeah.
AAB. You know, they're not handicap accessible.
Yep.
They're there, they've probably been there forever, I don't know. But, you know, to put a new sidewalk or crosswalk in today, it needs to comply with American with Disabilities Act.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
But thank you for explaining that.
Okay, Mary, did you have
I'm
anything?
all set.
Okay.
Just
Joe?
one last thing. Some of us old gray hairs recall that for many, many years, we had a traffic police officer at that intersection, directing traffic on and off Pleasant Street and the street that runs down toward the water. Recent years, for some reason, the police department has chosen not to put anybody there. But there was, and it was lit at night and so forth. But again, I'm showing my age. It was a while since.
Yeah, I remember it also, Joe.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was somebody there from like June through through
Summer
Labor
police
Day.
officer. Yeah.
Okay, does the applicant have any more?
Just one last thing to say, and that is that the access right now where we were looking to propose the fence, we can leave an opening in that fence so that pedestrians could come in from the Bank Street side down to the Ember side and come in at that side for pedestrian use, not for vehicles, but just for pedestrians. If that would alleviate some of the problems, then we definitely would allow that to happen.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me, is there any other comments or questions before we proceed?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we could include a condition of approval that Mass DOT explain whether or not this is a congestion reducing solution or if it will increase congestion.
Well, I think the discussion that we had was that we would not do a vote, but we would continue the public hearing pending receiving some information from
Yep.
Mass DPW.
Okay.
Okay.
It would, I'm just
That's
thinking
what we
it
need
might
to
save
talk
another,
about.
save another meeting
Right.
for the applicant.
But just,
Go ahead,
we
Charlie.
may as well have the conversation now. As you know, your next regular meeting, there's only gonna be 4 board members here, which is the 24th.
Which doesn't give us the 5 that we
Which
would
does
need for
not.
a vote.
We were going to discuss towards the end of the meeting, having a special meeting on July 31st, which is an extra Tuesday, because your next meeting after that is not until August 14th. Just a footnote, the application that you were to hear on the 24th is going to have some financial ramifications, significant, if their hearing is continued past the 31st of July. Not this case, the one that you're to hear on the, you know, that is regularly scheduled and already been advertised in notification. So, you know, at their behest, you know, I would ask that if you can hold a special meeting on July 31st, provided all 5 of you can be here. Otherwise, we're gonna have some problems. Not
Well,
just with trying to,
Well,
make a decision on this case, but other cases.
I think that's an important point to bring
Yeah.
up, Charlene. But let me just ask the applicant, and let's try to see if we can deal with just this application first.
But you need a date and time to continue it too,
Until-
so you
Right.
all need to decide if you're all
Right.
available on the
And-
31st of July.
But what, I mean, this application could be continued to another date. I mean,
It could be continued to the 14th,
Right.
certainly, but if we're going to be meeting on the 31st,
yeah.
and they have the opportunity to get what they need for that meeting,
Well,
why not take care of that?
That's why I want to ask the
Yeah.
applicant how time-sensitive this is, since you're not going to be doing any of the actual work on the entrance until after the summer season is over, and you just need to have that in place before opening next May.
We actually prefer to get to the August 14 meeting because Mass DOT works on a slow pace as far as responding
Yes,
to us.
I remember.
And I doubt very much if I would be able to get a response from Mass DOT, with all due respect to Mass DOT, in the next 3 weeks. It generally
Okay.
takes us longer to get things funded.
Okay, do you think you can get it from Mass DOT within that period of time?
By the August 14 hearing, yes, I would believe so, so if we could
Okay.
get continued to that date.
Okay, so then that
Okay.
takes that issue out of it, at
Mhm.
least with regard to
Okay.
this application. It's
that's-
still an
that's
issue for
fine.
the other thing you're
Right.
talking about, Charlene. So, again, before we proceed, does anybody else?
Assuming everybody's going to be here on the 14th.
Yeah, well, that's going to be another issue that we'll have to discuss.
Right.
Before I proceed with anything, does anybody else have any comments? And I want to thank everybody for all of their comments. I mean, this has been a very enlightening discussion of the potential complexity of what seemed to be just a minor change in the entry to this facility. But I think everybody has pointed out that it's a little bit more complex than it may have appeared on the surface.
You may also want to point out the fact that the public hearing has not been closed. So at the August 14th meeting, once the additional information is received, we hope from Mass DOT, that input would still be welcomed at that
Oh,
meeting.
definitely, yes, definitely. So then, if I understand the consensus, and I'll ask Joe to make the motion, we will be continuing this public hearing to our meeting on August 14th.
Move to continue PB 2018-24, Sunday School, Inc., to August 14th.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we will continue to the meeting of August 14th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Charlie.
Thank you, and again, thank you to all members of the public who
And please, board members,
commented.
don't throw away your,
Okay.
let's not kill anyone.
I'll give everybody just a minute to, who were interested in this item to clear before we go on to the next item on the agenda. Okay, the next item on the agenda is under public meetings for new business. The first one is PB 2018-28, William J. and Janet Drusilla.
Drusilla.
Drusilla, okay, I am sorry, I'm very bad on pronunciation.
Close enough.
Okay, thank you, you recognized it anyway, okay, thank you. As owners and applicants seek endorsement of a two-lot approval not required plan entitled Plan of Land in Harwich, Massachusetts, dated June 19th, 2018, prepared by Michael S. Lotto, PLS.
Ledoux.
Ledoux, okay, sorry again, of Moran Engineering Associates LLC, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 81P and Section 400-9 of the Codes of the Town of Harwich for property located at 57 and 61 North Westgate Road, map 78, parcels G2-2. The parcels are in the R-R and W-R zoning districts. If you could please introduce yourself as applicants, and please present your proposal to us.
I'm William Chisilla, and my wife and I had this petition before the planning board, and we had Danny Croto do the engineering work on it, and I think he can explain or answer any questions that you have for what we're doing.
Yep, Dan Croto from Moran Engineering. Here, Mike would, in place of Mike Ledoux, a licensed surveyor for it. We had taken the Drusilla's land, which consisted of the, an approved lot and a parcel, combined them, and then made the two lots. One of them just, both meeting the town zoning code. One of them 40,068 square feet, one of them a large lot, 572,000 square feet. And Bill and Janet's house is this property to the south. Number 49 Westgate Road is their building lot, and then their other members of their family own property to the south of this as well. So basically, we took the one large lot, then there was a separate deed that didn't have that wasn't part of a plan yet. That got added together, and we came up with two properties that meet the town zoning code. So that's the proposal before you, or the plan before you.
Okay, before we go on to questions and comments, I'd like to ask Charlene for the staff analysis of this proposal.
The proposal does meet the minimum requirements for endorsement of an approval not required plan pursuant to section 400-9 of the Harwich Code and pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, sections 81K through GG. Each lot contains adequate frontage on North Westgate Road, which is a town road. Engineering department had no comments. Conservation just noted that the entire area is in an endangered species habitat and would need state approval for development or alterations to the land. Lots may need Conservation Commission approval for development. No work is allowed within the 50-foot buffer, and no problem with subdividing land, but there are development issues. And just today, I did receive input from the health department, who just noted that the septic system must comply with all local and state regulations, and no variances would be granted. You can't condition it, this is more for information for the applicant.
Okay, thank you, Charlene. Are there any questions or comments from members of the board? Joe?
Emily J. Peckham owns the property next door?
She owns it on the other side of our house.
Yeah, okay. And you?
She's our daughter.
Okay. And 49 North Westgate has a house on it? Doesn't show on the plan, but you have a house there?
Yes, it has a house.
Okay,
We've lived there for over 50 years.
okay. And is there any house on 2A?
No,
Not yet. Is it your intention to?
we're planning on selling that lot.
Okay, okay.
And we did the panhandle for the 35-foot requirement to get to the land behind.
I see it, yeah, yeah.
But if I might, it's important to point out, however, that Lot 2B still has frontage further up on North Westgate Road. So
I
that
figured it
is
must have.
their actual legal frontage for the purposes of endorsement of an approval not required plan. I don't like calling it a panhandle, but the little leg out onto, they can still use that for access. So this doesn't fall under the need for a subdivision under the panhandle rule because it has adequate frontage up north.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that was clear.
I'm assuming that the northern section of Lot 2B is not an adequate access because of the bog?
Actually, if I might, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead,
Actually, there's
Shirley.
adequate space up above that to actually build a house up there if they wanted to.
Okay.
So wherever they choose to build, You were right, if the wetland was right along North Westgate Road, there would be an issue with frontage. But looked at that pretty closely, engineering did too, and the town surveyor, and they do have enough space there that if they did want to construct right there, they could.
Okay, any other comments from any members of the board? Okay, hearing none. Any members of the public have any comments? Okay, hearing none, then I would like to request a motion on the findings.
You want to, how about a motion to close the public hearing?
It's not a public hearing.
Oh, okay.
We don't need it, Jeff.
All right. Wait a minute, now I can't find the darn.
Right here, Jeff.
It's second to bottom.
Yep. Vote to adopt the following findings, that said plan does not constitute a subdivision as the way shown on a plan, a public way, town road, private, provides safe and adequate access.
Second. Okay, I have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, unanimously.
Motion to endorse the A&R plan entitled Plan of Land in Harwich, Mass., prepared for William J. and Janet E. Gisella, prepared by Moran Engineering Associates, LLC, dated 6/19/2018, scale 1 to 50.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Yes. Unanimously approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You want to sign them now, and you can take the Mylar. If I can get 3 paper copies signed, and I don't care what color ink you use.
Now, after those are signed, they go to Anita.
Nope, not an A&R. That's a definitive subdivision.
So then I get one to bring them to the registry.
Take the Mylar. Okay, let's start that way with those.
Of course.
I'm gonna start the Mylar at this end, we have the special pen. There's no one here for the next one, I mean, I can pinch hit on that.
No, I don't think we proceed if there's no one here.
Then it's gonna go to the 21 days expiring.
Yeah,
That works for me.
whatever.
There's no issues with it, so.
I've used so since I've seen it, maybe longer.
They're shorter.
Another signature.
No, I think it's all set, it's fine. I'm just gonna do it.
Oh, there's a signature up here?
Yep,
The paper one doesn't matter.
Jim, Joe, Jim.
Jerry Scannell, signed my fancy.
Okay, while we're finishing signing,
three-
I'm just
just
going
three
to
of
go
those.
on and.
Just 3 of those.
The next item on the agenda is PB 2018-29, Joseph V. O'Loughlin, and Alma O'Loughlin as owners, Michael O'Loughlin as applicant, seek endorsement of a 3-lot approval not required plan entitled Approval Not Required Plan of land in Harwich, Massachusetts, dated March 7th, 2018, prepared by Terry A. Warner, PLS, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 81P, and section 400-9 of the codes of the town of Harwich for property located at 16 and 0 Squantum Path and 98 North Westgate Road, map 28, parcels 78, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mary. Parcels G10 and J2-6 and G11-3 respectively. The parcels are in the R-R and W-R zoning districts. Is there anybody here to speak for the applicant? Seeing nobody here to speak for the applicant, we will not take any action on this matter tonight. Then moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is board elections. As all of you know, once a year we need to elect a chairman and a vice chair for the board. I would like to now open nominations for the position of chair of the planning board of the town of Harwich. Joseph?
I nominate James Joyce.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, I have a nomination of James Joyce and a second to that nomination. Are there any other nominations? Okay, then I would like a motion to close the nomination.
Move to close.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. I would like all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we will go to the.
Wait a minute, did Jim vote?
Did I have a choice?
He doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to, we get a quorum, we only
Get a
need a quorum on this
Do we
vote.
need,
I'm
do we
gonna
need
put
5 votes on
unanimous.
this?
You can vote for
Four.
yourself.
Okay, now what I'd like to do is vote for those that are in favor of Jim Joyce to be chairman for the next year. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It's unanimous. Jim, you are now chairman.
Thank you.
If you
Very
don't
well
mind,
done
I
there.
will finish this meeting and let you take over with the beginning of the next meeting, if we have one.
You finish.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Okay, the next item on the agenda.
Would you
will-
want to do a vice chair?
Yes.
He's
You'll have a
he's
chair.
getting there.
Yeah, will
Go
be
ahead.
the nomination
Okay.
for the position of vice chair for the planning board of the town of Harwich.
Mr. Chairman, is it clerk, vice chair, or vice chair? I don't get.
Technically, it's clerk, but you historically have called it
Vice chair.
vice chair,
yeah,
so it's,
according to the statute, Joe, is clerk.
yeah.
But we have traditionally called it vice chair, so that's why Charlene wrote it down that way.
Move to nominate James Atkinson for vice chair.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to nominate me as vice chair. Now, do I have a motion, are there any other nominations?
Move to close nominations.
Okay, I have a
Second.
motion on the floor to close nominations and a second to that. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of closing nominations?
Aye.
Signify by
Aye.
saying aye. Okay, all those in favor of me continuing as vice chair, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I will continue for another year as vice chair. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is advisory opinions, Board of Appeals. This was listed out.
Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, Joe has to go, but,
Okay? See you, Jim. Good luck, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
hey, are there any comments on the matters pending in front of the Board of Appeals on July 25th, 2018?
None.
Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the next item. Approval of the minutes of the May 22nd, 2018 meeting. Do I have a motion on?
You don't have a quorum of the board to vote as
Oh.
David was absent.
Right, I was
did-
going to abstain.
Oh, okay, well then we don't have a quorum to vote.
So we'll hold
So
those
we-
to the
if
next
we could
meeting.
continue that item to the next
Get
meeting.
Joe back. Could we drag Joe up the stairs again?
No.
That'd be tough.
No, let's just continue it to the next meeting. Okay, is there any old business? Hearing none, are there any briefings or reports by any of the board members?
Mary?
No briefing or report, but a question.
Go right
Did-
ahead.
Did we agree earlier in this meeting that we will hold a special meeting on July 31st?
That's where I was gonna just go.
Yeah.
Please say yes. Please, everybody be here.
I'll be here.
I'll have to check my calendar. I'm not sure.
Okay, can you let me know ASAP?
I can let you know tomorrow.
Yeah, because we're gonna be in a pickle.
How many do you already have that will be available on the 31st of July?
Mary, I think
I'll be
this
there.
Jim said yes, I think
be
Joe
around.
said yes,
And I said yes.
and you said yes, yeah.
Okay, and is this a matter that will require 5 votes?
Yes,
What about
they're
Alan?
originally scheduled to be heard on the 24th,
Yeah,
but you don't have enough people. There is another public hearing which is not a problem, it's just a majority of the board members present, so I'm not
Okay.
concerned about that one. But this one, there's only gonna be 4, so you cannot even act on it.
Did you hear from Alan on the 31st?
No,
okay, so Charlene, does that mean we will not have a meeting on the 24th?
you are definitely meeting on the 24th, you have to meet on the 24th.
We do have to meet.
Yep, even if there's 4 of you, you have to meet, because the other public hearing, it's a road name change.
Oh, okay,
Not a big deal, so you're good to go on that one.
I'll be there.
okay.
But the other site plan approval application, you know, they filed in good faith, and it's not their fault that we're not gonna have
Okay,
enough to act on that date.
Mhm.
So anything I think the board can do to accommodate them would be,
okay, well, I'll check my
Yeah.
calendar
Okay.
and send you an email or something tomorrow.
okay, perfect,
Okay?
Yep.
So that you'll know by
perfect,
tomorrow.
perfect. Okay,
Okay?
Yep.
I mean, I think, but I just need to
Yep.
double check because I
yeah,
have.
because I want to let them know as
Yeah,
soon as
no, I
possible,
know.
because,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I have company coming in at various times.
I have a house full that week, so.
You have a house, so you probably want to get out of the house.
Well, no, I actually like the people who come.
Oh, okay, well, that's good. Anyway, Charlene, while we're on that matter, just, do you have any sense of whether or not the Board of Selectmen are making any progress, or whether we have any
I
candidates?
don't believe we have had any candidates. I do know there was someone at the last meeting.
Yes.
Frankly, they probably got scared away.
Why, just
Um,
because it went over 4 hours?
Well, no comment, but I've not heard from the gentleman,
Okay.
one way or the other, and I've not seen that he has actually made applications, so. And I know a woman had expressed some interest. She came to a meeting, have not seen anything from
And
them.
you haven't seen any
No.
application from
I
that
did reach
person?
out to a couple people that I do know, just to say, hey, what do you
I
think?
did too.
So hopefully we'll get somebody, but we definitely need people.
Would there be any way that we could put sort of a message on the town website, you know, encouraging and inviting people to apply for opening?
Gee, I'm not sure. We'll have to ask the Channel 18,
You just have to send me an email with what you want it to say.
okay, we will do that.
Okay, if we could do that, I'm not sure that will generate anything, but that's the only thing I can think of that we could do.
What about the Chronicle or something like that?
They put an ad in periodically in the legal notices.
Yeah, people don't really read.
People don't really I mean, I'm a legal notice geek, so I actually do read the legal notices, but,
I could write a letter to the editor.
you know, actually, someone could write a letter to the editor, if the board wanted to. I see the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce making eyes at me. Maybe she has an idea.
Yes, feel free. Just identify yourself for the record, please.
Cindy Williams, Executive Director of the Chamber, Harwich Chamber. Actually, my monthly Channel 18 shows, I usually kind of do what's happening in Harwich and stuff. And when there are different committee openings, I do try to mention it to kind of entice people. For some reason, people enjoy watching me on TV, and I'm not sure why, but they do seem to listen to the 2 a.m. runs
The reruns?
the show's on, so I'll get with whoever about some of the openings and make sure that I mention it next week when I do the show.
Yeah, that
Another
would,
plug, you know.
Yeah, that's
certainly.
great.
Yeah.
no, that would be very helpful. Also, does the Chamber of Commerce have meetings of its members and all?
We have monthly business after hours, and we are doing some in the summer. We don't usually, but typically this year we are trying them. So what I can do at both of those, again, when I'm making my whole pitch of what's happening and stuff, I can mention again to have people get involved. I know when we were getting close to voting and everything, I was really a big cheerleader for all that, making sure people would vote and to the different things, so I'll do that again.
Because I think you saw the importance of our having a full board this evening, and this isn't the
I
first.
wasn't gonna get up and talk tonight.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly all right.
And actually, I'm gonna put a plug in, because there's two other very important regulatory boards in town. One is the Board of Health, they're in need of membership, as is the Historic District Historic Commission.
Please.
Yes, and if I could put another in, being the planning board representative on the Community Preservation Committee, they still don't have a full committee either.
What I can do even too, we're updating our website to give a more pretty enticing look to attract people to Harwich. We can put a place there too, maybe a button, get involved in the community, kind of go through that with the committees and stuff. So I'll take a look at all the different openings and I'll make sure that we get it out there.
All that would be very helpful. The
Thank
only
you.
suggestion that I might have is if you're going to discuss it at one of these business after hours things during the summer, if it would be helpful for either the new chairman or me to be there to sort of both give a pitch and to answer questions from members about what it's like to be on a planning
What I'll
board.
do is I'll grab Jim's email and I'll send an invitation when I do the e-blast for the business after hours, and certainly any of you are more than welcome, of course, to the business after hours. I encourage, people getting more involved with meeting with the businesses and the members, so absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. That will all be helpful.
Thank you, Sue.
Okay, with that said, is there any other briefings or reports? Okay, hearing none, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a motion on the floor and a second. Do I have any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.